So yeah, who knew back in October when we had our first rally protest in front of the SoCal Gas gate in our Halloween costumes that come springtime we'd still be dealing with this? It's pretty mind-blowing. So yeah, we've all been through a lot. Everyone has been through, you know, I don't have to describe it all to you, the health problems, the displaced from your homes, dealing with SoCal Gas and their so-called reimbursement, all their lies and everything, manipulation of the whole narrative. I don't really want to get into all that. I think we all know that the problem with SoCal Gas. But what we can really do to combat that, the main thing is, A, keep this conversation alive everywhere, in the media especially, because it's going to want to go away really quick. Especially, you know, it's hard enough when there was, and still is, nothing to actually see. So now that everyone thinks that the leak is capped, it's kind of drifting away from media perception, but we have to keep that alive every way we can. And the other thing that we need to do is really the long-term win, how to shut this place down, is with legislation, legislators, and elected officials. I mean, trying to fight SoCal Gas directly is, you know, that's aiming at the wrong target. We have to go after legislation and regulation to get rid of this place permanently. So you always keep an eye on Save Porter Ranch Facebook page, because we're going to have various campaigns to call and email and many times show up at elected officials' offices to forward our whole campaign of Shut It Down. Yeah, in the past few months, I'm really amazed at how this community, this quiet, like bedroom gated community has suddenly come out of their gates and really risen up. It's really amazing and impressive, and unfortunately, unfortunately for all the wrong reasons. But in the end, that's gonna, you know, be one of the things that makes Porter Ranch even a better place. So we're gonna, you know, turn this lemon into lemonade in the long run. So, and Save Porter Ranch has really grown itself. We have several new people. If you raise your hands when I call you out, we have Jen Milbauer. She's back there. We have Paul Hunt. Are you here, Paul? Oh yeah, he couldn't make it today. He's really been helping out a lot. I'm going to probably forget some people. We have Chrissy, who's not here today. And of course we have the people that have been around, like the Save Porter Ranch board, which is myself, Kyoko Fabino. Kyoko, where are you? Raise your hand. I saw her. All right, there she is. She's the other co-founder. And we have Mark Morris, who I don't believe is here today. He's the vice president and one of the directors. And Kyoko is a director as well. And we have Gabe Kenlin. Gabe's over there. Oh. And by the way, rewind, Jen Milbauer, she's running for Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. As is Susan Gorman Chang, who is sitting right over there. And those are two of the best bets for making this community even a better place, because I think you all know what Save Porter Ranch, particularly myself, thinks about the current Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. That's a whole nother meeting. Also, we have Alexandra Nady and Walker Foley. Is he here today? Walker Foley. They're both from Food and Water Watch. They were our big sister, our big brother company that really nurtured Save Porter Ranch and got us off the ground. So while they don't live here, they are so instrumental in everything that we've done. So, who did I forget? Okay, and there's a lot of other people. I didn't mention my name because, again, it's still not us 8 or 9 people. It's like the whole community has come together, and that's been pretty awesome. And we're going to talk briefly about that at the end, because a lot of new people have joined our committees, which is going to magnify our forces and our effectiveness, and we're going to spread out like an octopus and make a lot more things happen. It's going to be a long, long game. So if you plan on living in Porter Ranch for a while, you know, help us out, join us any way you can. One way is we are now officially a 501c3. We just got that approved. it's retroactive to October of last year, October 7th. And so we obviously we take donations. We've spent very little money of what we've gotten so far, and we've gotten a lot done with it. So we're very frugal, but we plan on doing a lot more stuff because we have to. We're now in this crisis mode, so we have to like really jump on it. So obviously we're asking for donations. We haven't done an official fundraiser, but today is a good opportunity. I mean, we take cash, checks, and we also take credit cards now. And Michelle Terrio, sitting over there with the red Save Porter Ranch shirt, she's got the credit card machine if you want to see her at any point. That'll be awesome. She'll be here all day, folks. And so great, we got a great panel today. Lost my notes. The health issues have been like paramount for what's been going on with us. And so we originally we planned on having Dr. Michael Jarrett from UCLA, but he could not make it today. Because his main issue with that is he doesn't have the final results of their testing in, so he didn't think he had that much more to update us on. But we're standing by for that, and his thing was very instrumental in getting the whole county health testing to happen. And as of right now, that is the thing where our next move, what will dictate our next move is getting those results back, and of course, who knows how long that's going to take. I forget the date, I think like they said, I forget the date, but it wasn't real soon, unfortunately. Okay, so we also have Bill Powers. I've never met Bill. Hi, Bill. He's he's founder of Powers Engineering. I can read this thing, but I'll let him introduce himself better. He can probably do it better than me, as everybody else can do. So I'll just skip quickly and let you know who's going to be talking, and they will talk. Let's get right to it. We have Don Gamils. He's the president of Argo Scientific. His company is graciously set up for free the real-time methane monitoring and that we have set up on Save Porter Ranch. Right on the website, we can see what's going on with methane. But right now it's in a very limited situation because they need a better location to get better results. And you're still in the one backyard, correct? Yep. Yeah, and for all of you and us that live in the Highlands has a great opportunity to help out with this thing, and they're stalling. So any way you want to call and email the Highlands board and what's his name? The manager, I can't think of his name right now. To get them on board with like why are they doing anything besides, oh great, how can we help the community? They're stalling. I don't get it at all. Okay, so that was brought to us by Don, and then we have Dr. G, who I've never met either. She's going to talk about she's going to talk about other, like, I believe, mental health and psychological aspects of this.
Yeah, effects on the nervous, respiratory, and dermatologic systems.
Thank you. And then we'll be winding it up with Alexandra Nagy. She's going to tell us about our Shut It Down campaign. She's spearheading that one, and how we're going to shut this place down eventually so this never happens again. And that's it for me, so take it away. Who's up first? Alex Nagy.
Hey everyone, so good to be here, so good to see all of you. My name is Alex Nagy. I'm the Senior SoCal Organizer with Food and Water Watch. We've been working with Save Porter Ranch since April of 2014. I'm actually from Chatsworth, and so this is, very interesting, and I feel very privileged that I actually get to work in the community that I grew up in with the people who literally across the street, my neighbors growing up, had to be relocated because of this whole disaster. So this is very personal to me. I also work across Los Angeles with communities all over fighting back against oil and gas. Just this past week, we won a ban on fracking in Carson, California, which was... 5 years ago, Occidental, the largest oil company in the state, now they're California Resources Corporation, came to Carson, a middle-class Black and Latino community, and said, we want to drill 200 new fracking wells in your city. And they didn't think Carson was going to put up a fight. They thought, well, this city already has so much industry. They have the refineries, they have the ports, they have the rails. We can put 200 there and totally get away with it. But it just turns out that there was a community organization that had been organizing there on things like making sure we have grocery stores and making sure housing developments, you know, some of the same issues we all work on across our city. And they learned about fracking and they decided that they were going to stand up and fight, and they said no way. And it was a 5-year fight. Last year, Occidental CRC actually withdrew their proposal, and if the community had not stood up and opposed it, they would have just fast-tracked that right away. So that was a huge win when they withdrew their proposal. And then 2 years of working on an ordinance with the city council, they finally worked to pass the fracking ban. So that was really great. And it just shows that communities, when we band together, we really can make a difference. When we started out with Safe Porter Ranch, it was literally Matt and Kyoko walking up to me and saying, oh my gosh, 12 new oil wells, that's crazy, we don't want that, what can we do? And so Food and Water Watch, we're international, we have offices across the country, we work with communities to teach them organizing, talk about activism, and how we can hold our democracy and our politicians accountable to us and not the corporations. And we've seen an erosion of our democracy, especially with Citizens United, and so what we really need to do is relearn what grassroots movements really mean, especially when we're talking about taking on the largest industry, the most powerful, and the most dangerous and reckless. I mean, they're literally destroying our planet and our possibility for survival as a species so they can make more money. And they refuse to allow us to make that transition by capturing our politicians, capturing our regulating agencies, and the courts, and they're on and they're on. And so we really have to stand up. If we don't do it now with this amazing crisis opportunity, I hate the way that sounds, but it's absolutely true. You have the attention of the world. And so now we can be a leader. Now we can demand real change. And when we were just Matt and Kyoko, and then we grew out to 4 people, and we stalled the Termo project, all of you in this room, I'm just looking, I'm going to say 150 people maybe, in this room, getting involved in doing simple things like calling your neighbors and letting them know what's going on, getting them to turn out to events, getting people to sign the petition, getting people engaged. That will go such a long way to make this happen. And so what I want to do today is talk about just what we've been working on, kind of how we've been thinking about what it would really take to shut this facility down. And so I'm going to kind of go through a couple of, you know, what our goals are, who our targets are, who do we think we can actually move, who do we have the most influence over as voters, and then thinking about what are some of those things we can do. So next slide. I hope you can see that, but we've kind of got a big ambition for Los Angeles. This happened in the largest city in California. We have so much influence here in Los Angeles, in California, and in our city. Porter Ranch is a huge voting block in District 12 and LA County Supervisor seat, and we want, the #1 goal is we want to permanently shut down this facility. And so 2 of our goals are identifying alternatives to the Aliso Canyon, and basically showing that it can be shut down, right? And then we want to pass motions at the city and county level where we have done the work, we've shown it can be shut down. Now we have to get the city council members and the county members on our side calling for that shutdown. So we see those as being 2 things. Obviously we need to do a lot more, but kind of big takeaways. We also want to stop the 20-year franchise agreement between SoCalGas and the city of Los Angeles. Every year now, they've been extending a 20-year contract agreement, and that basically means DWP is contracting using the pipes, using the storage, using the transmission. SoCalGas has been extended on a year-to-year basis since 2012, but they're gearing up for another 20-year contract. They really want that, you know, deal to guarantee that we will contract them for the next 20 years. I think that's ridiculous. We don't need to be getting into long-term contracts with SoCalGas. We need to keep it year to year. We need to maintain our flexibility And we need to get off of natural gas, period. So why should we be rewarding this terrible company with a 20-year contract? Absolutely no way. So we're working on that a little bit. We also know 100% renewable energy has always been the flip side of shut it all down. It's a huge wake-up call, right? We cannot continue to rely on this infrastructure. It's aging, it's past its useful life. We know what the solutions are, but we lack the political will, and that's where we come in. So a very easy first step is getting the city to do a feasibility study. They have to do it anyway for SB 350. They have to go 50% by 2030. Why not, if they're going back to the drawing board, why don't they look at 100%? We need to hold them accountable to doing that this year. And finally, we need to make sure we're getting all the money, the fines and penalties from state lawsuits, personal lawsuits, the different agencies that are suing over air quality. All of this money needs to come back to Los Angeles, Porter Ranch, and other communities to get us off gas, to get us off fossil fuels. And we have our mayor luckily on board with that, and so we have an opportunity, but that's going to be a drag-out fight. We know the gas company does not want to pay, right? That's the last thing they want to do, but there are already some cool things in place. We can help fight for that. Next slide. We're stoked, yeah, we're on it. So goals for California. So we were at LA, taking a step back, looking at California. Governor Brown needs to use his executive authority tomorrow to require that facility gets shut down. He has the power to do that. Do we think he's going to do it? I don't know. We'll get into that. We also need to pass SB 380. This is Senator Pavley's bill. She has been a champion on this issue. Yeah, she's incredible. She's been really listening to her community and listening to the stakeholders and trying to keep Aliso Canyon shut down until every possible safety inspection, until everything is made safe. It's really well intentioned. We think it's a really good bet at keeping this facility shut down. Absolutely, it should not come back online until it's made safe. For me, and I think for a lot of us, we're really skeptical about whether that facility can ever be safe. I mean, that's totally a joke. This facility has been causing odors and health problems for years, for decades. So going back to normal, going back to the status quo means being slowly poisoned every day by this facility. You can't make something like this safe, right? So we think it's really important. It's pushing the dialogue. It's keeping the facility shut down. It's requiring all these agencies to do a review of Aliso and look at the long-term viability of the site. It's a good thing. We need to keep it passed so we can keep it shut down. We know that SoCalGas, they're saying, oh yeah, our timeline, let's open it back up at the end of the summer. It's like, no, we can't rush to open it. SB 380 will help us keep it shut down. Next slide. Okay, so targets. These are the people that we can move, who have the power to give us what we want, right? And we have to build our grassroots efforts and our coalition building and all of what we're doing, and we have to direct it at these people because they can do it for us. So like I said, Governor Brown, he's the number one. He can make this choice tomorrow. He can decide to shut Aliso Canyon down, and the state would just have to come up with a plan and figure it out, make it happen. We have Senators Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein. I don't know if you heard, but Feinstein came out with a really strong quote saying, candidly, Aliso Canyon should be shut down. Like, we are really changing the conversation here. Senator Barbara Boxer is definitely on board with us with that. Then we have Congressman Brad Sherman, who he thinks it should be shut down, but he keeps saying it's too big to fail. So he's really skeptical. I think we need to show him that it can and keep pushing him more to our side. One of the things he keeps saying that really frustrates me is he says, well, we need just a bunch of tiny Alisos all over LA. We just need a lot more smaller storage fields in our backyards. And that's really crazy. Like, why would we double down on natural gas infrastructure when we can, get off of it? So he needs a little work. And then we have Senator Fran Pavley, who you all know, SB 380. She's great. She's really close to Governor Brown. She kind of checks with him before she does stuff. It's kind of that relationship. So we really need to push her and make sure that, keeping her on our side means influencing Brown. And so she's kind of going to be looking at the study Bill Powers is talking about and figuring out how to formulate her position so she can start talking about shut it all down without making Jerry Brown mad. We have Mayor Eric Garcetti, so he is really critical for the 100% plans, making sure we're moving in that direction. Like, he has the authority and he has the platform to say, I want our city to go 100%. But he's also the mayor of LA, so he's incredibly influential when you look at statewide picture and targeting Governor Brown. If we get Garcetti on our side, you know we're doing really well. He told us in a private meeting, he said, I want to support you, show me how we can get there. And I'm like, okay, I'll just have to show you. So we have to hold him accountable to that. And then you have Supervisor Antonovich, who said, absolutely, Aliso Canyon is not safe. It needs to be shut down and made safe. We need to really push him. He hasn't been that vocal on that message lately. He's been really focused on making sure we're getting health studies and like people have relocation extensions. That's all really good, but we need to keep pushing him on this, especially as our study, which Bill's going to talk about. We're going to take it back to all of them. And then finally, Councilmember Mitchell Englander, who we all know is running for county supervisor seat. He's in an election. A lot of us have thought using this kind of disaster as a platform for his campaign. And he's been doing a lot of great things, but when it comes to shutting down the facility permanently, is that really what he thinks, or is it something he just says when he stands in front of a lot of people? So there's a lot of work to do there. We actually asked him to introduce a resolution where the city of Los Angeles would call on Governor Brown to shut it down, and he told us no. He told us no 2 weeks ago that he was not going to do that. He said no one else will second it, and it's a state issue. Well, we're talking to a bunch of other council members. We actually have support. We really need to hold him accountable. If we can't do it now when he's running for his seat and show him he has to do this, what are we doing? Like, that's the basic thing we can do. And so I illustrate this. It kind of goes from state or national to all the way down to the very local. And it really is at the local level where we have the most power, where our vote really counts the most. They're more accountable because there's a smaller voter pool, right? And so just to illustrate this in a quick little story, we asked Governor Brown to issue an executive order, declare a state of emergency. And he told us no. He told Senator Powley no, who then told us no. And we're like, no, that's not okay. We need a state of emergency. We need these resources. Like, why would you tell us no just because you're already on it? It's not enough. And so we got all of the people. We got Mitch Englander, Supervisor Antonovich, Mayor Garcetti, Scott Wilk, who's not on there, who should be on there, he's amazing, and a bunch of other local electeds. We went and talked to everybody and said, you need to call on Brown to do this. And we know he got so many calls, got so much pressure, and then it came out, you know, we were calling, the grassroots was calling, but we got elected officials to call him out, which was really incredible. And that's what eventually moved him, on top of the fact that it had come out his sister Kathleen was on the board of Spr. So I really think it was an effort to save face as much as it also was, you know, all this pressure from the grassroots and local electeds. But it's kind of the first time we've actually really been able to move Jerry Brown on these issues. And I think if we continue that approach, really building from the local up to the state, we can be successful here. Next slide. So finally, the tactics. So this is what we do to our targets, you know, with our constituency, with us, the grassroots, to achieve our goals. And so what we're going to do this next week, we have this study coming out. Bill's going to talk about it, showing how the report about blackouts is not true. We need you to call every single one of those targets and make sure you know about that report, and that you want them to stand with us in saying blackouts are false and we need to shut this facility down. So that's what you all can do. It has tremendous power and influence when you make a phone call. You can also write an email. You can also write a letter. So we were saying, let's get 50 calls to each of these targets in the next month. And I think we can actually exceed that, but let's try 50 in the next week. And then petition gathering, we've been doing petition gathering. Our goal is to get 10,000 by the end of the year for Shut It All Down. We know Mayor Garcetti won his election by 12,000 votes. We're thinking he's running up for election next year. So we thought that would be a good goal to hit. We want to hit 5,000 by the end of July, and we're doing really good to hit our goal. And then Matt talked about media being super critical. Is Patty here today? She just got a letter to the editor published. We've been training folks just like you on how to write LTEs and with our demands in them and to our targets and how to really use the media to our benefit. So it would be great. We have so many articles coming out, and even when we don't, we have something to say. We have something to tell people, and so we should be submitting LTEs every week to get our message out there. And then finally, building a coalition. We have a sign-on letter saying, if you're an organization, a business, a church, an HOA, any part of organization, you can sign on to this letter and support shutting the facility down permanently. Our goal is 100. We're actually at 77, so we're doing pretty good. I'd like to get the rest to be local. A lot of those are statewide groups, which is amazing. We have statewide solidarity all over. But let's really get the neighborhood councils and the HOAs, let's get them on board. Let's get the local churches on board. It has to be a grassroots movement if we're going to impact the local elections and politicians and influence them to do what we want. And the last slide, I think, or second last. So 2 upcoming events, just jot it down really quick. April 28th, screening of Dear President Obama. This is going to be a look at President Obama's policies on energy and how that has enabled fracking across the country and what people are doing to rise up against it and bring the renewable energy future. It's really good. Mark Ruffalo narrates it, so if you like his voice, you should definitely go. And then May 14th, we're doing a massive action in downtown LA. We're starting at City Hall and we're marching to the SoCal Gas Company headquarters. This has been a huge coalition effort of Food and Water Watch, 350, raise your hand, 350 amazing people, Safe Porter Ranch, and a group called Stand Together Against Neighborhood Drilling, who fights back against urban oil drilling. And so this is going to be people from all over the state converging, saying we need to break free from fossil fuels. Now is the time. We need to keep it in the ground. We need to shut it all down, and we need to go to 100% renewable energy. And so we're going to be calling out the mayor and city council, asking them to be a leader on this, and we'll also be calling out Governor Brown. So those are 2 things I'm really, really excited about. If you haven't signed in yet, I would highly recommend you sign in so we get your email and we can update you about these events, let you know who to call, when, how to get really involved. And last slide, or is there one more slide? One more. And volunteer. To change everything, we need everyone. So thank you so much for being here, and that's my time. I'll take questions for 5 minutes, if anybody has any questions. Got one over here. You want me to get a microphone? Sure.
Where's the mic?
Up on the table. On the table.
Is this on?
Okay. Yeah.
Just a comment, I think it's also important to target the agencies too, like especially, well, for example, I don't know if a lot of people are aware, but I mentioned this at public comment at yesterday's meeting that the Water Resources Board is investigating it's not on, the impact of the water. I don't know if people are aware, but State Water Resources Board, there's no press releases, Times isn't covering it, but they are now investigating the impact of the water, all this spewing in the air of all this, fluids and everything, how it's impacted the water. So I commend them, but Dogger is not doing a good job, and I think that's another issue, is putting pressure on the regulators too. So elected officials is one aspect, but also, very important, because I was pressing Ken Harris or whatever his name from Dogger about the fact that it's still coming out of the air.
But the well is still off-gassing?
It's still, yeah, he's claiming it's off-gassing, and it's like, come on, these people, they don't even know what's going on with the water,
So
at least
I would
okay.
just say that our regulators, as much as we need to actually watch what they're doing and participate in the process, it's kind of a rigged system working through them. I think more than anything, we need to expose them for the corruption and illegal activity that they're doing. And keeping the pressure, like a whole regulating body and bureaucracy is not going to be able to move fast enough to give us what we want. In fact, they want to stall any conversation about shutting the facility down. The workshop that they did yesterday on energy reliability showed that we just want to talk about summer right now, and then we're going to talk about winter, and then next year we're going to talk about the future viability of the site. And I get that, but that is a stalling tactic to slow us down, so they hope we wait long enough and you guys won't be here anymore. So that is exactly what they're doing, and so I just would be mindful, these politicians have an election coming up, so the urgency behind pushing them and putting pressure on them is actually much more effective, and they can require, they can pass laws and legislation, like Matt said, to get us what we want. Yeah, Joe?
Is there any reason to believe that the gas field in Playa Del Rey is any safer than Porter Ranch? We are hearing from residents there that they smell gas, and we read an article last week that there are known leaks and that they have very few underground safety valves. The vast majority of their wells don't. Shouldn't we expect the same thing there that happened in Porter Ranch?
Yeah, absolutely. And they have so many unique problems to that facility that Porter Ranch doesn't have. And it's SoCal Gas operates Playa del Rey on a rancho, La Galita in Santa Barbara area, and then Aliso Canyon. They also have a Montebello storage field, which they had to shut down because it was releasing gas into people's homes. So the gas company has a terrible track record. They have these facilities, they're not maintaining them. Playa del Rey is actually the oldest facility, even though it's the smallest. So it's been leaking methane into the local Bayona Creek for forever. And all of these facilities need to be shut down. I think with Aliso Canyon, there's a real opportunity to shut this giant facility down that we actually don't really need, and start working on a plan to phase out gas altogether and really shut these facilities down and clean up the sites. Yeah. Yes.
This mic does work. Speak right into it. Right into it.
Close? Okay.
Real close. Eat the mic.
I don't know if it's working or not. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Question, doesn't Alex Padilla and Brad Sherman own homes up in Porter Ranch?
Yes,
So-
that's correct.
Seems to me they would be, I'm a little bit surprised about Brad other than, I guess, the position that he, as a congressperson, but you would think he would want to protect his own property and resale value.
Oh, I think he does, and I think that's why we've seen him be such a vocal champion on this issue. And he's not quite there on the issue and on the policy, but he has good people in his office, and I think we can push him. And I know he's definitely beating down Governor Brown's door, pissed off about certain things, this and that. So whatever we can do to educate Brad Sherman, if you know him, if he's your neighbor, let me know, and we'll do a stakeout, and we'll make sure he knows everything he needs to know. Brad Sherman, Congressman.
I'm not his
He
neighbor.
lives in the Renaissance,
I'm not
right?
his neighbor, but I know him.
So is Alex Padilla.
The other point I wanted to make, which it was unbelievable, the article in the LA Times about how the CEOs of the Southern California Gas Company got bonuses, raises, whatever. I thought you might be bringing that up.
Absolutely. I mean, it just shows that there are no consequences for these people, and so at what point are they actually held accountable by us, and what is it going to take for us to get the point across and them to shut this down? What Naomi Klein says, they're a rogue and reckless industry, and so they're literally waging war on our planet, on our communities, and they're raking in billions to do it. It's all greed, it's all insanity, and we have to stand up. If we don't do it, we're seriously the last generation that's going to have the opportunity to fight this fight, and so we have to start now. The fact that this blowout put all of you on the front lines when maybe you didn't realize you were there is kind of a blessing in disguise, because I know all of you amazing people are so capable of this, and I'm so honored and privileged to work with all of you. And I think that's questions for now. We should definitely get into our next speaker. So thank you so much. All right.
All right. Thank you, Alex. So our next speaker, Dr. G. That's pronounced right? Yes. Excuse me while I get through some of these big words. She has her anatomy. She has her PhD in anatomy and cell biology, postdoctoral training in chemical carcinogenesis at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, and she earned her MD at the University of Vermont College of Medicine, and she's done neurological residency training at USC and postdoctoral fellowship in neuroimmunology at UCLA. Boy. She is currently president of Culver City Democratic Club, board member of the Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, the Americans for Democratic Action, and a member of the West LA chapter of the Sierra Club. Now she's in Porter Ranch. Dr. G.
Thanks, Matt. I would like to thank Yoko Hibino for inviting me to speak over here. I feel a kindred kinship with the people here because 10 years ago, as a resident of Culver City, we had to be on the receiving end of methane and hydrogen sulfide as it was released by then PXP and now Freeport McMoran oil and gas company from the Inglewood oil field. At that time, when people got sick as in experiencing headaches, asthma, nausea, dizziness, difficulty thinking, and had to voluntarily evacuate themselves from the neighborhood, the fire department in Culver City and LA County came by and said, well, we did hazmat determinations of the air and we don't detect anything. So, you know, as Dr. Tom Williams would say, our noses are our best detection equipment that we have, so use them generously. I'm sorry?
And they're free.
And they're free, thank you, sir. That was 2006, 10 years ago, and we just commemorated the 10-year anniversary of the release of gases. Hydrogen sulfide is a serious neurotoxin in the sense that, I don't know if you guys read about the report in the LA Times a couple of years ago when there were two workers who fell into silos that stored hydrogen sulfide at a recycling plant. They found them 48 hours dead of hydrogen sulfide poisoning. So it's not compatible with health and life as we know it. So hydrogen sulfide is a bad thing, is a bad actor. And what about methane? How do we experience methane? Well, it's, as you know, from all the reports that you've read, it's odorless, and you can't see it with your naked eyes unless you're using special equipment, infrared, etc. So, how do we experience methane? Well, we all read that SoCalGas has been injecting methyl mercaptans into the wells as part of the shutdown process. If we could, I'd like to share some information from Uncle Sam, the CDC, that talks about what our exposure limits to methyl mercaptan is. I know that people are still experiencing symptoms, headaches, nosebleeds, nausea, dizziness, some cognitive problems thinking with memory, and sulfur compounds, mercaptans, have a tendency to do that to us. So I just wanted to bring that to your collective attention. The OSHA limit for, maybe you can see some of this stuff. Okay. The OSHA limit is 10 parts per million and 20 milligrams per cubic millimeter. The NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and
Can't
Health.
hear you.
Test.
Here you go. Can,
Just really talking to it.
keep the mic.
Okay. Yeah, the NIOSH, or National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health limits are less than that, just 0.5 parts per million, and it's 1 milligram per meter square. Oh, okay.
Closer,
Closer? Okay.
closer.
Test. Can we get this turned up? Is the other one?
Just talk right into it.
Okay, and then we have ACGIH limits. What does ACGIH stand for? American Conference of Government Industrial this word here. But in any event, industrial hygiene is 0.5 parts per million and 1 milligram per cubic millimeter. So,
You're back here.
You need to hold the mic this way, straight out.
straight out? Okay. All right. The last entry is from the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists. Their parameters are same as that of NIOSH at 0.5 parts per million and 1 milligram per meter, cubic meter. So the cubic meter refers to the skin, and as you know, the skin is the largest organ that we have, and we absorb methyl mercaptans through our skin, as well as our respiratory system, and it has impacts upon the nervous system as well. Next slide, please. Sure. And as I was mentioning a little while ago, methyl mercaptans are inhaled, so you can expect respiratory symptoms. A lot of you have complained about asthma and asthmatic attacks, so there you are. And dermal, some of you have experienced rashes, so there you have it. Our skin is the largest organ that we have, and that's how we absorb some of the methyl mercaptans. And eye contact, you may have experienced eye irritation, and there's another route of exposure and contact with methyl mercaptans. Next slide, please. And what can we expect when we're exposed to methyl mercaptans? I know a lot of you have experienced headaches, dizziness, staggered gait, where you can't walk a straight line and you feel like you may have imbibed, but you didn't have anything to drink. Nausea, vomiting, wheezing, rapid heartbeat. You might have expected or experienced palpitations, rigidity in the arms and legs. There's bluish discoloration around the skin of mucous membranes. That is to say, your lips and tongues might have turned blue. That's what we call cyanosis, and irritation of eyes and mucous membranes. When you breathe, your throat is irritated, and your nasal passages might be irritated as well. Next slide, please. Okay, what kind of effects can we expect in humans? We can expect elevated blood pressure, severe hemolytic anemia, hemoglobinemia. That is to say, your red blood cells, whose job it is to carry oxygen to your major organs and to your brain, have less oxygen carrying capacity, so you might feel fatigued more so than usual. Deep coma and death due to pulmonary embolus 28 days after the exposure. That's usually an industrial worker. That's based on the signs and symptoms of an industrial worker. But you guys have had contracted and protracted exposure to methyl mercaptan. So, if you have any respiratory symptoms that don't quit, it's a good idea to seek medical attention. Next slide, please. Recommendations of medical practices. This is for industrial workers who anticipate exposure to methyl mercaptan. So they are recommending that before they start work, they need a thorough medical exam and physical exam. and they need periodic medical screening and biologic monitoring while they're on that job and job description. And at the time of transfer or termination, you need another medical exam as well. So basically, you're in a similar position because you may or may not have had baselines prior to the exposure to the gas release. But now that you're still experiencing some of the symptoms, you will need ongoing medical screening and attention, and then after the abatement of the methane release, you'll need it as well. Why are you still experiencing all these symptoms after they've plugged up the well? Well, it turns out that a lot of the chemicals that are released from these gas wells, it's not just gas or methane. In the beginning, this facility started out as an oil field and then a whole bunch of oil wells. So you can expect the usual bad actors that you get from an oil well. And a lot of the volatile organic compounds, or VOCs for short, they tend to bind to our fat cells or adipose tissue, and then we become depots for all those chemicals, and that's why they're slowly released and leached from our system, and then we can expect to experience the symptoms long after the oil and gas wells are shut off, and that's why some of you may be experiencing some of the symptoms even now. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. All right. So these are some of the, I know the letters are small, but they are now for an industrial worker exposed to methane, and we're in this position, or you guys are in this position where you're going to be needing these kinds of medical exams. It's not only a medical exam, but we're talking about environmental and occupational histories are taken thoroughly. You'll need a physical exam, and you'll need detailed exam of your skin, nervous system, and respiratory system. What do we mean by respiratory system evaluation? Next slide, please. Following the recommendation by NIOSH and the American Thoracic Society, we're talking about standardized questionnaires and tests of lung function. When we say tests of lung function, we have a whole set of tests that are called pulmonary function tests, where they ask you to blow in to, in a little booth. We're supposed to blow as hard as you can into a detection monitoring equipment, and it tells you what your vital capacity is and all of that. And because things may get worse before they get better, you may want to establish a baseline at this point in time with your primary physician. And in terms of personal protective equipment, again, these are for industrial workers, but since you guys are exposed to this stuff day in and day out, 24/7, it may not be a bad idea to consider chemical protective clothing, gloves. I know it's extreme measure to talk about face shields because the methane is gone from the wells, but if you're experiencing skin irritation, that may be what's required to prevent that in the future. And they are requiring or recommending respirators approved by the Mine Safety and Health Administration. And you may say, well, that's an extreme measure. But if you're having respiratory symptoms, that may be what's required to treat the situation. And they are telling us that air purifying respirators will not protect from oxygen deficient atmospheres. So if your atmosphere is depleted of oxygen, and if you're contemplating respirators, it may not work just because there's not enough oxygen to sustain you. So let's see. Yep. My other set of slides have to do with the study that we made by the Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community when we were exposed to the to the release of methane and hydrogen sulfide back in 2006, and we did the study in 2009. I can just rapidly run through the cases or the slides because you'll notice a lot of similarities between what we experienced and what you guys are experiencing now. And in the Q&A section, I like to hear about what you guys are experiencing now to see if there are parallels and how much in the way of similarities we're experiencing. This study was done about 3 miles, within 3 miles of the Inglewood oil field. Next slide. And we want to know if there are health risks living close to the oil fields. Next slide. And 2/3 of the population in the perimeter of the oil field smelled gases coming from the oil field. So again, as Dr. Tom Williams said, our noses are our best detection equipment, and they're free. Next slide. And there, 1/3 of the population said there was cancer in their household and in their families. Next slide. And a lot of the cancers were other, and if you break down the category of other, we noticed that there was almost equal representation between breast cancer, prostate cancer, and lymphoma, leukemia. Next slide. Any respiratory illnesses. At least 1/3 of the population experienced asthma, and our national prevalence rate is only 10 to 12%, and they were everywhere at 26.6%, so it's higher than the national prevalence rates. Next slide. And close to 40% experience hypertension or high blood pressure. The prevalence rate is only 28.7%. Next slide. Any reproductive problems? At least 6% experienced reproductive problems. What are they? On one Culver-Crest Street, there were 11 miscarriages and 2 ectopic pregnancy. I've lived in the state of Maine and went to school in the state of Vermont, and I've never been on any street where there were 11 miscarriages and 2 ectopic pregnancies on one street. Next slide. And there were autoimmune disorders. 8% experienced thyroid disorder. And we know that from the literature, there's a lot of endocrine disruption with the chemicals coming out of the oil and gas fields. Next slide. Next slide. I timed myself for 15 minutes, so let me shut that off. Yeah. So we're getting to the end of my talk. But anyways, I think we've highlighted the significant findings from the field, so we can shut down the rest of the slides. But in closing, I'd like to mention that you're at ground zero, and just the way we were at ground zero. And what can you do to document your anatomy and physiology and at this time point? To see anything that might develop down the road a piece, maybe related to what's happening right now. So what can we do at this point in time? You can have your benzene levels determined in your urine. I just found a company on the East Coast called NMS Labs that will do that. And the more people participate in that, the more they can reduce the price of the determination. They're asking for $345 per person, which does not include shipping and whatnot. Little background to that. A couple of years ago, we had a toxicologist determine the level of benzene in our urine, and it was part of a grant. And they found that the people in my neighborhood had benzene levels of 16 times normal. Normally, none of us has any benzene levels that we carry in our blood or urine, so that's our baseline. So if you should be diagnosed with something down the road a piece, now is the time to determine your baseline. So I'm going to pass around an attendance sheet, so if you wish to participate in a benzene determination, I will be able to get a better price the more people participate. So I wanted to pass that around. And in summary, we live in the LA Basin where there are at least 5,000 gas and oil field drilling sites. So we're all in this together. And it behooves us to unite and make sure that all these fields that are emitting noxious neurotoxins are shut down in the long run. And now is our time to switch to renewable energy. And I see two representatives from the community choice aggregate who came to Culver City and told us about that sitting in the audience. So I think these folks might be able to help you transition to renewable energy. Culver City just signed on for that. So I just wanted to mention that this is a good time to switch and put solar roofs on top of your homes and switch away, because you're the consumer. You have the most power to vote with your feet and switch to solar power, renewable energy, and then kiss natural gas goodbye. Thank you very much.
Dr. G, you have a couple of minutes. Dr. G, you have a couple of minutes to take some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
You gave us the information about what the methylmercaptans do to our body. Is this readily available information? Because I'm wondering why the County of Public Health wouldn't have that information to have given to the residents.
It's available online. I just got it off the internet. You just go to the CDC site and get the information. I was surprised because when I came to speak at the AQMD hearings in January, I came here and then I was sick for a whole week with headaches and joint pain, and I just felt sick as a dog, and I didn't understand why, because I was no longer in Porter Ranch. I was just here for 8 hours the first time. The second time, I came here as sent by Sierra Club to give Al Jazeera America an interview on behalf of Sierra Club and talk about the methane, the neurotoxins that they were emitting. And again, I got sick for a whole week. So I should tell you a little bit about the County Public Health Department. To cut to the chase, we're all on our own. Because we relied on the County Public Health Department to tell us about the gases that were emitted from the Inglewood oil field. We, being Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, had to do its own determination of what gases there were that were being emitted. As I mentioned, the fire department's equipment did not detect anything. And as Dr. Tom Williams said, our noses are the best detection systems that we have. But you have to watch out for that in the sense that our olfactory nerves are the nerves that carry a sense of smell and odor. The more they're exposed to methane and all the neurotoxins, they degenerate and they lose their ability to detect noxious stimuli over time. So the minute you detect it, make sure you've got a phone system lined up with your neighbors, at least 5 of them, to call AQMD. Because as time goes on, your nasal epithelium will work less well for you. And that's something that I complained to AQMD that they should do with 5 calls or 6 calls, but I'm just a neurologist, so. Yes, sir.
Doctor, speaking of the county health department, have you been following the situation where their Dr. Cyrus Rangan issued a directive to local health providers to look for alternate etiologies and not to do toxicological testing and call him instead on anyone who's still complaining of symptoms here? Because that looks very suspicious to me as a reporter who has investigated these type of environmental health stories before.
We ran into the same obstruction with Dr. Rangan when we tried to recommend that when they did the questionnaire of the Inglewood oil field, he would not permit us to include headaches as one of the symptoms to include on the questionnaire. So that told us right off the bat that he was representing the wrong clientele. he wasn't representing us. And as some of you know, headache is the first symptom that you experience when you're exposed to carbon monoxide because it is odorless. And headaches are the first symptoms that you get before you drift off into a coma and before you know it, your history. So headache's a very important thing to pay attention to. Yes, sir.
I'm a treating physician in the community, and just a feedback, this physician is a pediatrician, and had no comment about the dosing effect on children versus adults. And yes, I did receive that letter to answer the question, and it was definitely suspicious. My question is, inhexane, to me, is much more toxic, is part of the gas release, or blowout. And could you please comment on any demyelination syndromes that it might cause? Because we're actually doing a very deep investigation, unfortunately, a death in the community, and now there's a second that we want to be able to, we're waiting for Jarrett to give us feedback. We're also waiting for the neuropathology department at UCLA that's doing her post-mortem to rule out what they call a CPM syndrome, which I'm sure you know about, versus an osmotic demyelination syndrome. So there's all kinds of suspicions going on that there's other toxins that are very, very toxic aside from mercaptan.
Right, I'm glad you brought up central pontine myelinolysis, otherwise known as CPM for short. That's a very serious and life-threatening situation, and when you mentioned post-mortem, can I ask you about what the circumstances were surrounding that demise?
Yes, obviously can't use any names, but it was a female at approximately 70 years of age that presented early in the morning with confusion, ended up going to the emergency room locally and was on a ventilator at 9 p.m. that night and passed away within the next 48 hours.
So that individual was within close proximity to the wells.
We speculate about a mile and a half. She had also no other etiologies of the differential diagnosis to have osmotic demyelination syndrome. As you know, it has to do with hyponatremia and recorrecting the
Rapid
osmolality correction. Hopefully I'm talking loud enough everybody can hear. But it has to do with the hyponatremia and the rapid correction. She had none of that. She had none of the other possible etiologies that would cause this syndrome in her. And if you look at actually studies which I've looked at over the last probably 5 months, there's all kinds of potential mechanisms for other culprits within the inhexane and benzane, how it's metabolized to a cytohexane, which then can be a possibility to, as an effective osmol to cause demyelination. But this concerns me the most, and we started a study at Porter Ranch Quality Care about 2.5 months ago, so we are screening patients very aggressively despite the fact that the Department of Public Health has not recommended.
As I mentioned earlier, yeah, we're on our own in this thing. So basically, you know, we have to talk to each other and help each other out and figure these things together. I assume that you're a physician because you're talking about CPM?
Yes, I am.
Are you an emergentologist or?
I did emergency medicine. I'm from UCLA.
Oh, excellent. Okay. You know, CPM is a specifically defined demyelination in the brainstem. So the question, you know, from a neurologist or a neuroimmunologist like me is going to be, is there any cortical demyelination or subcortical demyelination that one would expect to see as you would in multiple sclerosis or any of the central demyelination syndromes? So, you know, that will be our question.
Her MRI showed it was all in the central brain and the pons, but we're just waiting for the tissue pathology to come back from the neuropathologist at UCLA because they basically put down a diagnosis that they did not know, and they ended up with viral process. So
it'd be interesting to get the final pronouncement on that. We'd be interested in following up on that as well.
Okay, let's get one more question over there. She has a mic.
Yeah, hi, right here. I saw your slides earlier that listed the different health issues and the percentage rates. Is there a way, is there a place where we can find the information that compares those rates of living near an oil field to not living near an oil field? You mentioned asthma being one of them as like a 26% rate if you live near an oil field, and I think 12% if you don't. But all those other health issues, are those comparisons available somewhere that we can find those, or?
I'd have to, no, it's not available elsewhere, but I'd be happy to email the slide set to you if you're interested in that.
Okay,
Or
yeah,
in that
I was
particular
really
slide.
interested in knowing what the differences are living near an oil field and not living near an oil field for all those health issues, thyroid, reproductive issues, all those things, but I can talk to you afterwards.
That's specific to our study, so that's, I guess, privileged information to a certain extent. Yeah. So I'd be happy to talk to the rest of you guys after everybody's talk. I don't want to hog the podium, so thank you again for all your interesting questions.
Thank you, Dr. G. That was pretty deep. So next we have Dr. Don Gamils from, she's the president of Argo Scientific. They're the ones that are doing the Fenceline real-time monitoring right in the Highlands. And I mentioned the Highlands before, it's Will Reinbold at the San Fernando Valley Management, the same place you mail your $160 a month to. That's the one to talk to about getting this thing set up properly. Dr. Gamils is going to tell us why this setup that he has works and why we need to even make this thing up all Porter Ranch wide.
Thank you. I'm going to make this brief. We're kind of running over on time here, but I'm going to just cut to the chase on a bunch of this stuff. Our company, Argo Scientific, was able to talk to some other companies when the Porter Ranch leak, when we heard about it was occurring, or the, not leak, what's the? Blowout. Blowout. When the blowout, yeah, I'm reprogramming myself, occurred. And we were able to get some people to donate some really great equipment that is able to detect gases on pretty much what we consider a real-time basis, which means that the data comes out every 5 minutes. So we were able to gather all that equipment together. We got it down here. We got a website running for the community to see, and the response has actually been overwhelming. It's just wonderful that we can actually come down here and help you guys. I want to give just a brief update of kind of what you're seeing when you look at this, as well as where I would hope all of this could go. Right now, the systems are set up to look for methane gas, benzene, toluene, and xylene. And these are what are called Fenceline air monitoring systems. So what we do is we shoot a beam of light out into the air, and it's very much similar to the kind of the beam of light if you have an automatic garage door opener, and if you try to close your garage door and you walk across the garage door, while it's closing, it will actually stop. The reason it's doing that is there's a beam of light at the bottom of your garage that is shining from one end to the other, and when that beam is broken, it's telling your garage, hey, there's something here, stop, because we don't want to squash the customer, bad for business. It's the exact same thing. This is what we're doing, is shooting a beam of light out into the open air, and when a gas crosses that beam, we can determine what the gas is as well as how much is there. What the potential of this is that you can actually put this up along an entire fence line up to about a quarter mile of a path length. What that means is that you could go to an entire community and set these systems up where the two pieces of equipment are a quarter mile apart from each other, and when benzene, toluene, xylene, or methane crosses that beam path, it will show up on the system. Now, right now, just to give you a little bit of understanding here, with methane, if you were living in a part of the world where there is no human intervention whatsoever, the amount of methane that's naturally in the atmosphere is 1.7 part per million. If you live in a urban area such as Los Angeles, it's typically at around the range of about 2.2 part per million. And when you get above, especially, 2.5 is still fairly normal, but certainly when you get up to 3 part per million or above, you get this straight off the Air District's website, that's when they tell you there are other major sources around. And that's exactly what this thing is showing you when the detections get above 3. That means that your major source here, which is the gas field, is, sending some methane your way. Right now, just to let you know, it says, if you look up there, that the benzene, toluene, and xylene system is offline, and that is the case. The reason for that is that piece of equipment's light bulb has gone out. And we're in the process of actually getting another instrument put in place that will replace that one. But quite frankly, I want to kind of transition into where we're going with this. The Air District right now is running some really state-of-the-art benzene monitoring systems in your neighborhood. And the data is just kind of hard for you guys to get to. So what we're actually working on is consolidating. We're going to all of the websites where we know there is information right now, and we're gathering all of that information, and we're going to put that on this main one so that you can see all of the benzene monitoring data from the Air District, as well as the methane monitors from their systems that are running. The systems that they run right now for methane only report data on an hourly basis, but it's still good information that is worth you guys having easy access to. And we're going to do that. We're going to make sure that we can get all that information to you guys. And like I said, the benzene monitors they have right now are really, really good. They actually have detection limits in what we call the part per trillion range, which is very, very sensitive. And so what we want to do is consolidate all of that information and give it to the community itself. Another thing that kind of came up when I came up here today was, I kind of asked, what do people want to know about this stuff? And the very first question that always comes up is, when are you going home? And the answer to that is, as long as there is one person here who is getting any information of this stuff that they consider valid and of value, we're staying. Okay? When the last person says, go home, we'll go home. I mean, we'll take our stuff and go elsewhere. But if there's one of you guys who thinks that it's worth your time, we're staying. No questions asked. Okay. With that in mind, we also kind of want to make sure that what we can do is kind of help you guys, educate you on how to kind of grow this into a much larger, more permanent thing. It's good that you have one Fenceline monitor, but in most of the places where these kind of incidences have occurred, there's multiple Fenceline monitors. They're at every community that's being exposed to the problem itself. And we will help kind of work with you guys to, hopefully develop a long-term monitoring program that will help you kind of, if anything, feel a little bit safer than maybe you were before these systems were here. So that's it. So right now it's in the community of the Highlands, and like I said, what we would like to see is a whole network of these set up pretty much across the entire fence line between the communities of Porter Ranch, all the neighborhoods, and the gas fields themselves. That's normally how this is done in other places. So I'm done. I'll leave it open to questions at this point.
What will that cost to do it the way you're talking about?
I mean, the equipment itself, the hardware, and again, what I'm saying is I would not run, to be honest, I would not run we build the benzene, toluene, and xylene monitors, our company does. I wouldn't use those. I frankly would use the ones that the Air District is running. And I would use the methane monitors that are being built by a company by the name of Boreal. It's probably in the range of about $35,000 for an instrument that would cover a 1/4 mile path length per instrument. You know, and what you get from that is data every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you start adding up how many gas samples that is, it becomes a really, really cost-effective way of doing things. Yes, sir.
You said that they're doing, where are they doing the benzene testing? You were mentioning that. Where are they taking those, where's that equipment at?
I mean, again, I'm a foreigner. I'm from Oregon. You know, so I can steer you to the website.
Is it
that they
AQMD or who's doing it?
It's South Coast, yeah. Yeah, they have 2 systems set up, and I believe they must be using something that's called a gas chromatograph because they're getting extremely low detection limits. And they're really, really good air monitoring equipment. And I hope you guys pressure them to keep those going because they are really good equipment. Now, I want to also mention, I mean, you guys, one of the other things we want to do is kind of help give you guys some more information about this whole concept. And one of the things that I find astonishing is none of the people who are doing air monitoring right now are using the equivalent of those benzene monitors. They also make those for mercaptans. And given the fact that the community is continually complaining about odors, I find it astonishing that the real-time mercaptan monitors are not being in place out here as well, because, you know, it just totally makes sense. And these are commercially available pieces of equipment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I look at that as a layman. I see several places where the graph levels go higher than the baseline.
Yep.
But I've also seen the gas company try and dispel that by saying, well, a truck drives by and that could account for it. What significance do you attribute to these levels, and what's the significance to you?
Okay, well, let me tell you right now. The gas company would be right if a cow was driving the truck. Okay. If that theory were plausible, okay, every time you have a lot of traffic, which seems to be like at about 7 o'clock in the morning to about, I don't know, 12, and then about from 12:15 to 5, you would see a whole bunch more methane. And you don't. There's no correlation on those kind of things. What you see oftentimes when the methane is very high, it's kind of 2 normal times. One is at night when the weather conditions have stabilized and the pollution that is building up stays local. And then the other time is when the wind's blowing from the north. And it just so happens there's a big oil field full of gas north of here.
Well, let's get one more question in.
Very quickly, I know you don't live in the area, but there is, going up Reseda Boulevard, about a block and a half north of Rinaldi, and it's a little U-Haul thing sitting there, and we checked it out. They're testing the air. I don't know exactly. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, and actually the Air District and California Air Resources Board has a number of methane monitoring systems, and they are the ones that are in those little horse trailers around the city or a Porter Ranch. And they're fine pieces of equipment, and they're very accurate. You know, the only downfall as far as from a community monitoring standpoint is that they are sampling the air on an hourly basis. Communities want to know, if possible, as soon as possible, when something is going wrong. And one of the reasons that methane is such a great, we kind of look at it quite frankly, is kind of a canary in the coal mine kind of thing. Methane is not nearly as toxic as many of the other gases that are probably associated with this, but from a technology standpoint, it is an extremely simple and easy gas to actually detect on a real-time basis. So what we like to do is use the ones that are easy to use and commercially available, and quite frankly a lot cheaper than most of the other stuff, and use that as an indicator as to when other things may be present. So, but again, we're going to grab that data as well from the Air District, because it's showing actually higher values than our Fenceline system often does, but the reason it's doing that is because it's in a different location. So it's at different locations, there's more gas than there is at other times. So I think we're done, and again, we're not going anywhere, you know, and we really feel for you guys. I mean, it's not been fun, obviously, and we look forward to anything we can do to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gamils. So up next we have Bill Powers, the founder of Powers Engineering. He has 25 years of experience in regional energy planning in San Diego and worked on the transition plan for San Diego to go 100% renewable energy. His analysis of the Aliso Canyon storage facility's role in regional energy reliability in Southern California shows that this field can be shut down permanently. We really like Bill. Here he is.
Thank you for inviting me to speak here today, and I think just since time is a little bit short, I'll cut to the chase, which is, I think, Aliso Canyon is an event that's in a sequence of events, including the PG&E San Bruno pipeline explosion back in 2010, San Onofre nuclear plant shut down by flawed design a couple of years ago, and then Aliso Canyon, which in effect is a reflection of regulatory capture in the state. And I was asked to review a couple of reports that came out just a few days ago that are being used to justify the need to keep Aliso Canyon in operation. And one thing I've noticed over the years serving as an expert witness before the California Public Utilities Commission and the California Energy Commission is whenever I see the California Public Utilities Commission and the California Energy Commission and the California Independent System Operator and LADWP and SoCalGas all get together as authors of a report, something's wrong. And that report is probably very weak on facts because they feel the need to form a human shield to present it as a given. And this report is very weak on facts, and I was thinking as I was coming up here, both through Safe Porter Ranch and Food and Water Watch, is who in state government is not co-opted, who can say, let's step back, let's do an audit of this report. This report's got a lot of flaws. It can't be the Public Utilities Commission because they're an author. It can't be the Energy Commission because they're an author. Or the ISO, they're an author. And there are two entities in state government that could potentially be auditors. One is the state controller, a woman named Elizabeth Yee. Another is the state auditor, and the state auditor can be requested to do work by a state senator or a member of the assembly. And the problem is you can't go to the UN. That's not going to work. You've got to find somebody in the state who can say, hold it. We need to step back and really look at this, because the powers that be are saying right now that it is too threatening to us to conceive of a shutdown of this facility. Doesn't matter that it costs $40 million a year to operate. Doesn't matter that it entails a significant amount of risk. It's just too threatening to the energy mainstream in the state. And just so that you know, so that you may know with this one comment more than many of the energy regulators in this state, two neighboring states to the east, I guess one is to the northeast, Arizona, Nevada, both heavily dependent on natural gas for fuel. They have no storage. And they have reliably supplied natural gas to their customers, including electric generators, for many years. And so the point of departure is operating reliably a natural gas supply system in a large state with big demand with no storage. Now in this case, with Aliso Canyon and the 3 other storage facilities in Southern California, one of which is only 10 miles from Aliso Canyon on a rancho. The storage in California or Southern California is very abundant. You remove Aliso Canyon from the equation, the storage in Southern California is abundant. Doesn't go away. We still have a lot of storage. And so the problem is the system is being managed with a huge sink of storage to cover all of the sloppiness in the system. Sloppiness of communication between electric generators when they need gas. People opting not to sign up for firm gas contracts so they can save some money, like the generators or the refineries. Meaning sometimes things can get out of balance, and everyone's relying on a big sink of storage to take care of the sloppiness in the system. One solution is to get less sloppy. Get onto firm gas contracts and coordinate so that surprises don't keep coming up that are being covered by the storage system. And I found this one, this will be my last comment, and that is that Southern California Gas has a website called Natural Gas Storage. The purpose of the website is to entice large potential users to buy gas. And it indicates that storage can help customers maintain interruptible service, keep costs down, and eliminate the inconvenience associated with having backup fuel systems. What does that mean? Well, historically, power plants had backup fuel systems. You fire gas, but you got tanks of oil out back, so if you don't have the gas, you fire it up, you're covered. All that's gone. They're all on natural gas, no backup fuel. And the add to potential customers is eliminate the inconvenience that is associated with other backup fuels to you, the big customer. Well, how about you, the neighbors of the storage facility? If they've got backup fuel at the power plant, it eliminates the inconvenience of you living next to a storage facility. This is just 101. We always ran power plants like this until very recently, instead of going to a single fuel. So the point of this is there are many ways to do this. We can do it with a lot of storage, we can do it with a little storage, we can do it with no storage. And what we need is an audit. We need somebody who has the trust of the parties to say, let's step this back and look at a fundamental new form of management for our gas that may be more reliable than it was before when we had Aliso Canyon. Thank you.
We got time for a couple questions?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Bill. Big fan. Can you tell us the money quote of how difficult would it be to go 100% renewable power to replace this natural gas?
Well, I come from San Diego, where we are planning to go 100% renewable by 2035, though we're a little bit slow out of the gate, but that's the plan. And I don't perceive it as being particularly difficult at all. One of the things the state is doing right, and there aren't that many in the energy field, is a recent decision that lets everyone put rooftop solar on their home, or a business put it in the parking lot. Because I am often an expert witness in proceedings before the commission, and even the utilities are saying that battery storage is more cost-effective than gas turbines for filling that intermittency role. And so at this point, it's uncontested. We need to really ramp up on battery storage and solar power, but it's neither technically nor economically is it particularly difficult. The problem are the incumbents. The problems are the incumbent utilities that have a way of doing business and do not have a niche, at least yet, in that future.
I have a question right here.
Could you tell us, please, which law firm brought you all on this, or who's actually funding these projects?
Funding which projects?
Well, like the months and months equipment of the Fenceline monitoring, your reports, any of your expert witness.
I was hired by Food and Water Watch to prepare the report. I do not know who is funding the monitoring.
Okay.
And I was hired by me.
I believe, did Englander's office get a hold of you about this? Correct me if I'm wrong.
For me, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, how we got down here, we actually been trying to get down here for months. I mean, the minute we heard about the leak, we wanted to, as well as a bunch of other companies, wanted to be here and volunteered our time and energy to do it. We tried calling South Coast, and we couldn't get anybody to return our calls. We tried a whole bunch of places. No one would return our calls. When Councilman Englander heard about it, he said, how quickly can you get down here? And we got down here really, really, really quickly. But without him, we wouldn't have been here. But as far as who's paying for it, it's the companies who've donated the equipment and our companies have donated equipment and, you know, software and everything else.
One last question for Mr. Gamils. When people see those readings on the various monitoring systems going off the charts or high, what is the best way or the best person, best company to contact in order to get that into the official base?
I guess what, in regards to what, our...
Well, yours or anybody else's, I guess.
Well, I mean, all of this data is credible, and I mean, frankly, California Air Resources Board has asked for all of our data, and we've happily given it to them. So they have all this information.
But I guess the question is, when residents, what actions can we take when we see that happening to sound the alarm and get a hold of the right people?
I guess that's, I don't know if I'm really prepared to, or if I'm qualified to kind of answer that question. I mean, for example, one of the things that I often hear about is you have to call you have to have 5 people verify an odor complaint. What I would like to see you guys do is have the ability to have equipment that either you could collect the sample yourself, and we've worked with communities to do that, where you can actually sample the air and we actually have oil refineries pay for this who are around these. The community doesn't pay for it, the refinery does. And you either do that, or for example, if you had things like the real-time mercaptan monitoring systems, you know, if you're going to get above a certain level of mercaptan in the air, you will automatically get odor complaints. You will not have to worry about, you know, someone from the air district coming out to validate it. I mean, you've got science behind you to do that. And typically all of that is paid for not by the communities, it's paid by the person, the organization that's created the pollution. Yeah. I mean, that's typically for example, if you look at our website, you'll see that we run 2 websites for, one is for Chevron and their Richmond refinery, and the other is ConocoPhillips at their Rodeo refinery. And those were both part of good neighbor agreements that were reached between them and the communities to fund all of that, but it's actually kind of overseen independently by the community. So the community actually has direct involvement in the operation of that stuff, and frankly, they didn't like us, the community could fire us. They don't, but they could.
All right, great, thank you. Do we have time for, okay, any more questions for Bill Powers? Go ahead, Mark.
My name is Mark, and Mark Reed, I wanted to correct a couple of things. And there's nobody here from Sherman's office, and Sherman owns a house in the district, but he doesn't live in the district. He owns a duplex in Virginia, and that's where he lives. Next thing I wanted for the doctor, I didn't forget your name, from UCLA, the gas fields there have been known to be leaking for 15 years. And you keep being introduced as someone from the Sierra Club. And I'm wondering, why does the Sierra Club, but this has been known as the #1 polluter in the United States prior to the blowout, why does the Sierra Club continue to give an endorsement to Mr. Sherman? That's number 1.
Excuse me, can you identify yourself?
My name is Mark Reed. I'm the congressional candidate running against Brad Sherman in this district. Okay, so I know quite a bit about the facility as well. The next thing is that how feasible is it to shut it down in the next year? and not bring it back online, because 19 of the wells have been known leaking for 15 years. And people have been getting sick, known sick for 15 years as well. Why can't it be shut down immediately based on those, and based on the fact that the oil companies now say that, yes, it may be a natural practice to inject and withdraw, but it's not a safe practice. They won't come out and say it's a safe practice using all oil wells to do this.
Well, I concur with you on that there's no reason it can't be shut down immediately.
So then, on an oil perspective, should a criminal investigation be open on the management of this facility and people being held accountable for gross negligence and gross mismanagement of the field?
The way the field was being operated was very poor. And so some type of investigation should be opened into why were they operating it so cavalierly. I have
Because after
no
the
question about
explosion
that.
in San Bruno, they knew that it was being operated unsafely, and the regulations were not adequate to run it safely. So I've been calling for a criminal investigation for the last 4 or 5 months based on the information that I know as well, and people should be held accountable for it. Period.
One more time.
I said they should be held accountable for the mismanagement and gross mismanagement of the facility.
And I concur. There should be an investigation of why they were operating the field in the way they were, where they were only looking for leaks as opposed to checking for the integrity of the injection wells. I mean, that to me was, from an engineering standpoint, there's no excuse for waiting for leaks to maintain your injection system.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If I could take some of the questions from a medical legal perspective. When we had the release of methane and hydrogen sulfide into the air surrounding Inglewood Oilfield around Culver City, the city of Culver City and 4 other entities sued the county of Los Angeles for negligence, et cetera, and the city of Culver City was able to get a moratorium against fracking and drilling for 3 years, from 2008 to 2011. So it was a settlement, and the health study was part of that settlement. And I also wanted to bring to your attention, which you already know anyways, that Jackie Lacey is suing SoCalGas. So it looks like they're bringing the lawsuits on board. So it looks like, and negligence was mentioned as part of the problem and the issue. So I believe that your concerns are already addressed by that. And I also wanted to go back and answer the question about Sierra Club. National Sierra Club has passed and approved resolutions to shut down all the oil and gas storage facilities in the county of Los Angeles. So that's gone up to the headquarters, and it's approved by the national board. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on that.
Yes, because I'm all for shutting the facility completely
Absolutely.
down.
Get in
I'm
line.
also against fracking as well.
Absolutely.
And Jackie Lacey is affected by this also. She lives on Mayor Lane, so this has affected her also.
When you say Maryland, is that in this neighborhood?
In Granada Hills, right? Yeah, she's been affected by it also, so I know.
Fantastic. I also wanted to mention in that vein that the State Attorney General, Kamala Harris, is also suing SoCalGas as well for negligence. So again, it's taken up at different levels of government, and they're being held, SoCalGas is being held accountable at different levels of government.
But nothing on the federal level at this point when they've had federal oversight, and Jerry Brown fired the federal EPA inspector there. So at a federal level, it needs to have true leadership at this point. And a federal congressional investigation needs to take place because it's nationwide, these storage facilities. And we have to have a nationwide plan to get on alternative fuels and away from natural gas and fossil fuels.
Absolutely. As California goes, so goes the nation. So we have to be the first ones to help make the determination and set a precedent.
Okay, as we see, this can go on for a long time, but we're kind of at the end of our time in this room. So we're going to ask Jen Milbauer, she's going to wrap this up quickly for us.
Hi.
Thank you, guys. That was amazing. Thank you so much for being here and speaking with some expertise about what we're all facing. So, did everybody have fun today? Did you love this community forum? Okay, so guess how we put this together? We have a committee called the Events Committee that put this together, and that is chaired by Alex Nagy. So thank you, Alex, for that. And thank you to the Events Committee. And what I wanted to just sort of close with real quickly is that last week we had our very first team building workshop, Save Porter Ranch did, and we put together some committees, some amazing committees, and I want to just go over them real fast with you. So we've got a fundraising committee. So hello, please donate to Save Porter Ranch. We've got our little donation bucket back there. And also we've got Miss Michelle in her lovely Save Porter Ranch shirt, and she can take your credit card. Every little bit helps. And if you can't donate money, we take stuff like office supplies, poster boards, so we can, put our rally stuff together, food. We love to have food donated for these kind of events. We have an events committee, like I just said, that put this together. We have our direct action, or also known as grassroots committee. We have our strategic partnership committee, where we work with coalition partners. For instance, Sierra Club, Food and Water Watch, many different coalition partners that we work together with. 350 I see over here. We also have our legislative and government committee, and I saw our chair of that committee around here somewhere, Richard Matthews. Richard, where did you go? There you are. Oh, sorry, that's right. He's Science and Research Committee. He's the head of that committee, the chair of that committee. But we do have the Legislative and Government Committee. Mark's the chair for that. We have Social Media Committee, which I'm on that committee kind of. I'm also the co-chair for Media Committee, so I was over there tweeting and putting stuff on Instagram to get the word out about this. And we have our Community Outreach and Recruitment Committee. So back on the table there, where underneath the Save Porter Ranch poster, I have a sign-up sheet. Please, you don't need to donate 45 hours a week of your time. A couple hours a week, every little bit helps. If we all jump in this together and act as a team, we can accomplish great things like shutting the Aliso Canyon facility down for good. So please take a minute to go over there, think about what committee you might be interested in, sign up, someone will follow up with you, we'll talk to you about your level of interest and what you can bring to the team, and it would be such a huge help. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you for coming. I see that you have a question, sir.
Yes, last night I heard on our radio station, news radio, that they've started to infuse gas once again. I want to know if any of you have any answers on that.
I don't think that's true. No, I can't imagine them doing that.
Release of hydrogen sulfide.
They released it. Yeah, well, I got a notice in my inbox on, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday evening. It was Thursday, saying that they had released an odorant on Wednesday, which they did not name the odorant, and I know a lot of people smelled it. That's the thing. They are a tricky little neighbor up there. They're slippery, so we've got to keep our eye on them. And, we cannot let them get away with anything, which is why we've got to call every time we smell something. 1-800-CUT-SMOG. That should be on your speed dial on your cell phone. And file a health complaint if you're still not feeling well. The link is on the Save Porter Ranch website. And what else can I say to speak to that? We're going to wrap it up. I know everyone's got a lot of questions. Hopefully you guys will stick around for a little bit and we can ask some personal, one-on-one questions after we wrap this up, because we do have to vacate this room pretty quickly. But don't forget to go back and sign up for a committee. We would really appreciate it. And don't forget to donate to Save Porter Ranch. Thank you guys.